I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. Hello, Foxy listeners. Welcome to the show today. You know, I love interviews that start beforehand, and sometimes I feel like I should really stick the before stuff after. We've had a great conversation. So I know the interview is going to be really great for you guys. I have David on the show today. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Tanya. It's a nice pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your story.
My story, well, it starts way back when I was a kid in technology, and it's kind of grown since then. But let's say I grew up, my father was an electrical contractor, and he liked to tinker with electronic things. He invented a piece for a plane in Vietnam, even though he was working the hydraulics. He had fixed this little wire connector so that they could save about an hour of time when they checked the sensors on the plane when it would land. And, you know, when he got home, he would collect electrical things, video mixers, cameras, old microwaves. And that's kind of how I grew up with technology, just within an arm's reach.
Right.
So over the years, it's just kind of molded into different areas of my life. And we're here now with a startup building some with media, some with computers, databases, and technology. So it's been quite a journey.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was about this new startup that you've got going on, because, you know, it's kind of the world's first, you know, social TV network, but really based, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've researched, really based to help those small business owners sort of play a larger game. Is that correct?
Yes. This is a necessity from my business partners. We were all kind of sitting around saying, hey, could we create something that business owners could play on their TVs that would kind of like benefit them instead of take away from what they're doing? And essentially it was like an Italian restaurant. And we jokingly would sit there and say like, hey, how dare that Pizza Hut play their commercial in your establishment? Ha ha ha. You know, and it kind of started with this like joking thing, like, is there something like non-competitive that we could play? It's okay for everybody else, but like just not pizza or not food. And so we kind of built the thing from there to say, let's create a network of TVs that business owners would connect all their TVs together and start sharing content, but make it local, make it about the city, right? Make it something the mayor might tweet and it would go on all the TVs, or maybe somebody takes a picture of the local, you know, fair that's going on and it gets shared amongst the TVs and people are like, hey, look, that's neat. That's happening on Saturday next week, right?
Right. Yeah. Or even to people like, oh my God, that's my place, right? Like, because I think we all do that now. If you know, especially if you live, you know, on the outskirts. I'm on the outskirts of a larger city. So anytime I see, I'm like, hey, that's us.
Yes. Yep.
You just hope you're making it for good reasons.
Right. Yeah.
And not just because it's on the news.
Yes. It's more for like, I mean, major cities, they have a TV channel, but the little ones, like I'm in Apopka, we have 50,000 people. Yeah, it's growing. It probably grew from 30,000 10 years ago, but it still doesn't have its own TV channel. So is there a way that business owners could create content about what they do? A plumber could have a little 5-minute segment like he would on This Old House, Did you have that
Right.
show?
Yes, I remember that show.
Right? Before the home model remakeover and the rah rah rah, it was just contractors like, all right, let's go replace the staircase over there. And people would watch it. I mean, I would watch it, but it was, again, you
I
didn't
learned how
really
to
know that
replace a
contractor.
toilet because of that show.
You did. Right? It's not that hard, right? But at the same time, like, you'd watch it, but the question is, would you always do that, or would it be nice to know somebody that could?
Mhm.
Right? So if you'd watch somebody do it a couple times, you might try to do a couple things around the house, but eventually, like, I'm just going to call the guy. Like, I know he's in my community. I've been watching him for the past year, and it would build those little relationships between people that live in the community.
Well, and I think it's great for, the concept around it is, these days also too, it's hard to know what's in your area, even if you're in a small town. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't always look for that thing, like for the example of a plumber, there's so many times where I'm like, so which one do you use? And people tend to like Google or, go on social media apps and be like, hey, does anybody have any recommendations? Like, and you're just kind of playing this weird game of, a new version of the yellow pages.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because you don't know who they are. So
Yeah.
everybody's doing that. And like last summer, my AC was just, yeah, not really handling the summer heat. So I got on one of the sites. I was looking for somebody local, and found somebody, liked them, interviewed a couple people. Finally, hey, we'll meet you. So he drove over. So I'm starting this little conversation. Oh, this is the TV network. Oh, I drove 45 minutes to find, to get to your house. I'm like, 45 minutes. How many AC repair? There got to be 10 in every little town,
Yeah.
5 at least, right? So why is this guy driving this far? Is it because he doesn't have the proper marketing in his town? Because, I mean, if you had 20,000 people in your town, you'd have plenty of work if
Yeah.
everybody knew you, right? So that's kind of a branding problem for small businesses. Is it's either too expensive, or they can't get on TV, or they don't know how to do it. And if we can help them where they can walk, or wherever they eat, even if they're going to eat at a local restaurant, they can click a couple buttons on their phone, and now they have an ad on TV. It's a little bit of branding and exposure for them as a contractor.
So, talk to us a little bit about the difference between, because some people might go, well, I put something out on, I do like a little video or something like that, and I have that out on my social media. Wouldn't that be the same thing?
Yeah, if they're following you,
Right.
if you have everybody, like when you go have a drink at the bar, or you're going to the pizza place, or you're getting a haircut, if everybody in that room is following you, yeah, there's no difference. But if you don't have everybody following you in the room, there is a good possibility that you're branding yourself as something when they're sitting there watching the TV.
So, you kind of had this idea to be able to, have people be able to sort of advertise to, within their communities and sort of grow that. What has it morphed into, since the beginning? Like, have you noticed that this is like a bigger issue and that this is a bigger solution for people the farther you got in to actually putting this, this idea into practice?
Yeah, I was a little surprised with the how many people that I talked to in different states, and when we went to venture capital, all the people, oh, great idea, great idea. Why isn't there anybody out there, competitors? I'm like, no, not yet. And I wrote a patent on it, so there better not be another competitor on it, right? And they would be like, great idea. Some people would say, oh, I'll just look at my phone. Oh, I would look at my phone. And I said, yeah, but that's kind of impersonal. You're sitting at the bar, and I might want to share a cool experience that I had. Let's say I went to the Grand Canyon, and I'm sitting at the bar and somebody else is. I want to be able to share a photo up to the big screen and say, hey, this is where I was, and this is what happened over here. And you might get a couple comments like, hey, who just went there? And all of a sudden you're starting these little connections between people. And I just thought at some point somebody would have made something like that, but I haven't seen it yet. And so there is definitely a necessity of this little bit of get your head out of your phone and bring it up and bring that experience to everybody in the room versus just this very personable 4-inch screen that you have.
Well, and I think too, it would also help. So how does it work on like the other end? because I'm thinking like, so how does somebody who has a business go, yeah, okay, I would air something like this because right now nobody watches nothing.
Well, it works in a couple of positive ways for the business owner. So the business owner might just have a TV in his building, and they play something on it. Sports, awesome. We're not a replacement for sports. We're in addition to, and let's say they have another TV. They're running soap operas or some kind of cable channel. They would then say, hey, I want to do a little bit of advertising of who I am, the business, so they can put their food up on it. It's kind of like a digital display for them. It gives people local weather. It gives them a little access to their social media. So if the business is adding something to their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it would then automatically go up onto the TV. So we're trying to, that consumers coming in, or the customers coming in saying, I'm going to eat here, but we don't know if necessarily they're following them on all their socials. So if we can get them to be a follower, awesome. And then in addition to that, we want to give them some local content. So it's really beneficial for the business owner because they're bringing that person into the community, kind of giving them the updates. And then we're also going to pay the business owner a percentage of the ads that we get. It's not much, but it's better than paying a cable bill.
Right. Well, and I think, also allows the business to sort of use this as a way to grow their social media. Cause I'm even thinking, like an example you gave of like a restaurant is having your social media up there and even, creating challenges for people and saying,
Yes.
follow us, post a picture of your meal, we'll bring you a free
Yep.
dessert or whatever.
Yeah, we're going to give the one who takes the best picture of a dessert tonight or this week, we're going to award a $20 gift card. And now all of a sudden you have everybody taking pictures of their food and they're sharing it. And it's now, again, it's that interactive, very local based experience versus, you're probably not going to do that at a big franchise.
Right. And so the other thing that I would think that this would do too is allow your community to be a little bit more collaborative as this starts to grow, because now you're seeing what other businesses are doing. And, because so often I think business owners, especially if you're in like a brick and mortar, it's hard to get out to see what's going on in your own town. Like you see across the street, but
Yes.
you're working, and
Yep.
sometimes it can be hard. Have you noticed that happening as well?
Yeah, that was one of the things, being in that tech world, I'm locked in a box. I work behind the computer, and I just thought, oh, business owners, they get to drive to work, they get to be part of the community. But it is true what you're saying is they're kind of locked there too. They have to make sure everything's running correctly. And so one of the things for me was I couldn't be at every parade with my kids. Maybe when they got older, some of them wanted to sleep in, but that would be kind of a neat thing. And I'm thinking, small business owners, they definitely wouldn't be able to be there from 9 o'clock to 11:30, fight traffic. So little clips of things that are happening in the community, they get to watch also and kind of feel like, hey, yeah, did you go to the parade today? Oh, you didn't? Oh, maybe next year. It brings them into it. Also, local things like the mayor can make an announcement, or they can talk about new businesses opening up, ribbon cuttings. Little things that are happening that a big TV station really can't publish. We want to help those local towns do those things.
So let's flip to, sort of behind the scenes when this idea sort of came to be, because I think anybody who's listening to my show has an entrepreneurial spirit if they're not already in it. And they know sometimes we all have brilliant ideas that just stay an idea. So what was that like for you? Talk to us a little bit about kind of going, okay, how did you figure out this is actually something that can fly? To actually go, okay, this is a good idea. This is something that I can do.
Well, it's a long journey and struggle and unknown. When you first start out in a startup and you're building something, you have to check trademarks, you have to check patent offices. And we spent several weeks looking through different things to find out if this was something that could work, or if we were going to a competitive market. But at the same time, we were excited about building something that, if you just talk to anybody, they're like, no, I can't do that. So we figured, okay, we have something we're building new. But it is always a struggle and an unknown, I think, because you don't really know if somebody else is building it like you are at the same time, and they haven't launched it yet. So it's a little bit of a struggle, but we did it, we built it, and we have a great product. It's just a matter of scalability now.
Well, and you kind of had your co-founder had passed away in the just a year ago, I think it was.
Yes.
How was, if you're willing, how was that? Because I can't even imagine. That must have been like because you were also not, I'm assuming he was the face, because in your bio, it said you were a little kind of the introvert, the behind the scenes guy beforehand.
Yeah. He was, well, I'll say nobody was the face yet, but he was the person with all the network connections. He had a bunch of restaurants and a bunch of 35, 40 years of connections into the local communities, the cities, everything. And he was the senior. I still have a founding partner with me. And, it was like, okay, we were building the idea, we were building out the pieces. And I just thought, okay, at that point, once the product is done, I can sit at the beach, right? Like maybe get the Ferrari, you dream.
Yeah, it'll just roll in, right? That's the way it works.
Yeah, just roll in. I'm like, oh, we have protection on this, and we're building for scalability on that. And I'm thinking variables, every single city, users, how would they, you dream. But then when he did pass, it was like, oh my word, you go through this. What do you do now? How do you figure out the next pieces? And it's a scary time, because a lot of the things that you thought like long term, like, okay, in 10 years, you have to kind of rebuild that. But it's different because you don't have those connections.
Right.
So it's still a little bit of a struggle. So
is it kind of like almost starting over again a little bit in creating and getting out there?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's a little bit more. That's why I think it's a little bit of a pivot for me to be able to say, okay, then I'll bring at least some through podcasts and a couple of marketing and videos. I'll bring some of the product to market that way, besides some of the local sales reps. But still, you need that face of the product. You need something out there.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it is.
So in your journey, because this is still going on in your journey, but up to this point, is there one, thing that you can kind of share that was something that was a little bit of a struggle for you that you were able to overcome, that you could share, that somebody else might be in that situation right now?
That was probably a most recent struggle of jumping into the camera and talking in front of the microphone and camera and talking. That's definitely a struggle. You have to do it many times to get it right. I started, when I first started recording a little pitch, it was like, I told my wife, that took 18 times. 18 times. I don't remember meeting anybody like, yeah, I did this little audio clip. How long was it? 35 seconds. But it's not normal. Like I have an undo button in my code. I can look at, it's very different when you're doing things on the fly. But as far as struggles, I think in a startup, literally everything is a struggle, because you're trying to figure things out. Like I have struggle in the tech side. You think, okay, this box will work. And then you program it, you build it, and then it runs. And 3.5 months later, there's an error, or it overheats, or the fan goes bad because it's sitting at the upper side of a kitchen where the display is. There's so many little struggles in everything that you do, because there's no standard yet on how to do something. So each piece, you're just like, okay, well, let's try it and see how long it works. And then we'll put a little bit of experience into it and try to make the next best decision. So I've kind of learned to just be in the state of, this is where we're at now, and then we need to move up to the next level, because everything seems to be that way. Maybe I need to hire a bunch of experts.
Well, and I think this is important for people to hear, because I think a lot of times something goes wrong and then people are like, oh, I'm just like, this means I'm not good at this, as opposed to kind of going, okay, well, now we know, that we have to tell this type of customer, you can't have it near your kitchen because it will melt
Yes.
it, right? Like,
Yep.
so just kind of figuring out, those little things. And like you said, just learning to kind of move with it and change things. And I think sometimes we don't remember that's how everybody did. Like if I look back, I was just recently found one of like my first contracts of like working with somebody, and I read it and I was like, oh my god, like there's so much more stuff in it. But it was having those scenarios where you'd get yourself into a situation and you're like, I am putting this in the contract because I'm not doing this again. Like that was a
Yep.
mistake. We're going to add this in, like, there's a reason why coffee cups say caution, contents are
Yeah,
hot.
this
Like
is
you're
hot.
like, this is ridiculous. Who wouldn't know this? But you're like, listen, that was a lawsuit that
Yep.
they were like, I cannot believe I have to do this, but obviously we have to write
How
that
much
on
is the
there.
ink? 10 cents. How much was the lawsuit? 50 million. Okay, we're printing the cups.
It seems like common sense. I had a little tiny beach ball, like a blow up little beach ball that was I think it was like a contest win or something, but it said, do not use without competent adult supervision on it. And all I thought is, I don't know what that means. I don't know why
Yeah.
the word competent needed to
Yes.
be
I
put
was going to
on
say,
there.
please define competent adult.
But I've kept it because I was like, I really one day, like it just is something that I'm like, how did this get here? Like,
Oh
how
my
did this?
goodness.
There's a good story behind how this
Yes.
got there. I have a blanket too that says, it's one of those weighted beach blankets. You can lie down,
Mhm.
doesn't flip up and, in the wind.
Ah.
But on the label, and now I read labels. I never cared before, but now I read labels because on the label, my mom noticed it says not to be used to hide under during tornado or hurricane. And I was like,
Tornado or hurricane?
somebody did
Wow.
this. Somebody was like, this doesn't blow away in the wind. I'll hide underneath it.
Oh
Like,
my word.
because how else? But right, but it's that,
Uh,
sometimes, I mean, these are silly examples, but I think, it's refreshing for people to hear that you're going to hit these, weird things, or something's going to happen, something's going to crash, something's not going to work. But this is now something that you're going to use going forward, as opposed to throwing your hands up and going, well, it's all downhill.
yeah, I can't throw that away. I just can't throw away time. Like it's valuable for me to have that time. And so I brought a little bit of that programming world to the well, everybody does it in startups, but you call it version 1, version 2,
Yep.
draft, right? So I've shown my kids a few things here or there throughout the years, and I would say, oh, that's not that good. Yeah, that's okay, it's just a draft. And I said it so many times that I think they drew a picture one time and I said, looks great. And they're like, Dad, this is version 1. I go, version, okay, drawings don't have version 1, but they get this concept now of it's okay. Like try, build, and then don't expect 110% in that first version. You're always going to learn something, and that has to be implemented on an organized set of blocks that you can organize into a version 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And if you look at any kind of business like that, take a lot less serious the downsides. You're just like, no, I'm just going to do this little piece today, figure it out, and then I'll look at it next week again. And at least you have something to build on and to grow on. But I think a lot of people are stuck in any type of business in, oh, I don't know how to do the marketing, or, oh, I can't get on camera, or I don't know how to do this. You take 5 to 10 minutes and just do a draft, anything. You'll learn, your brain will start thinking about it, and it'll be completely different in 2 to 3 weeks. And then 6 months, a year down, you're like 98% better than everybody else because you've done that little piece, that really makes a difference.
Well, and I think it just stuck with it too. And we see it in everything, like even books are first edition, second edition.
That's true. Yeah.
It's because they were like, oh, I thought of something different, or they have new experiences, or somebody found a spelling error and they're like, we'll just fix it. We'll just fix that whole paragraph. We'll call
Yep.
it 2.0. Like, right. But I think people wait. Do you find like people wait too long, to try this, especially in something like what you're doing that I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, this is great or everything, but how am I going to make a commercial? Like, I have
Yes.
no, how the hell am I supposed to do that?
Yep, that's exactly what it's like, a roadblock. I call it a knowledge gap. And because I would go in, I would talk to this kind of business, and I would go in and go that talk to that kind of business, and they would just go, "Huh? How does it work?" And I figured, okay, this is like trying to go to somebody 10 years ago and saying, busting through the door and saying, "You have to be on Facebook business profile page. It's going to be detrimental if you don't." Right? And they'd be like, "What is that?" They don't even what are you talking about? You're crazy. And I was like, all right, well, you got to have some work. What are you trying to sell? What are you trying to talk to them about? You have to talk to them in their language. Is it a TV channel for somebody that, let's say, not on social media? And is it social TV for people that are using social, but they're not on TV? And you got to explain to them a little bit, because it is a new concept. Because I think the stats are like 98% of small businesses don't advertise on TV. So how do you bring that to market to teach them? Oh, I have to be this polished commercial. I have to stand in front and put my arms up and say, I'm the best chiropractor or plumber ever. Well, the generations don't want to watch that, the newer generation, right?
Yeah.
They're watching funny stuff on TikTok. They're watching cool stuff on YouTube on how-tos. So this has to be kind of a blend of both of those pieces. Can be a little bit of an ad, but a little bit of infotainment at the same time for the business owner to be able to create. And now it's like we're talking about something that we don't even do unless you're doing it a little bit on YouTube. So it takes a little bit of education. And I figured what we would do is bring in influencers into the network also. So those local businesses could find a local influencer, kind of teach them the ropes, most likely hand it off. Because as you know, most business owners, they're busy, right? They don't want to sit there and create a video and rewrite it or recreate it. They're looking to get something done, move on to the next thing, order more food, order more supplies, call another contact, right? And move on. So,
Well, and I think using, an influencer or somebody else who's coming in, I know for me, like any business that I've had, especially if it was like more retail based, I would always pay attention to what people looked at when they came in or what they were like, "Ooh, this is really cool." Because it was like fresh eyes, right? Like it's always neat to see what other people are, and sometimes what I've found, it's always the weirdest things that people are like, "This is so awesome." And they're taking a photo of like a sign that's up on the wall that, you just kind of thought was funny. And you're like, this just
yeah,
made your day. All right. Well,
it's the thing you don't think.
right.
Yep.
So if someone is, thinking about, how can I create content for, TV like this versus social media? What are some of the tips you can give them to start thinking about or sort of, some ideas of things that they can start putting together to obviously to eventually be on this, but
Yes,
and
yeah.
get this,
Well,
but
I'm trying to give people tips to create it for multiple platforms so that they can use that piece of content for not only Tweeva, but they could add it to YouTube, they can use short form video. But if it is a mix of between short form, which is, I don't know, is short form like up to 30 seconds?
I don't know anymore. I feel like they keep changing the dial on that.
Yeah. I
But
think
I
TikTok
would,
said
to
up to
me,
10
short
minutes
form is
now.
is yeah, like
Yeah.
so
So
we'll say between 30 seconds and 10 minutes.
yeah, it's
I
like
mean, small businesses are between like $0 and $1,000,000. So come on, we can do this.
yeah, that's true. That's true. But there was like this: if somebody doesn't watch your video in the first 7 seconds, and then I'm thinking, well, 7 out of 30 seconds, what's short form? Then it's 0 to 10. So you have that short form, which is very quick. You got to get to the point, and then you have your long form, like hour-long YouTube videos, which is great. But I'm not going to watch that if my toilet is broken, right?
Right.
So it's somewhere in between. And it's something that you'd want to think about someone watching if they're at the bar or at a restaurant and they just look up and they're like, oh, what's on TV? What would keep their attention for just a minute or two? And so I think it's something like how to videos with a little bit of information, infotainment in there. Um, Create that between a 1 minute and a 4 minute clip. And that's a piece of content that can be cut up and shared on the short form video sites, like even YouTube's doing short form now.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also be posted to YouTube in a small clip. It can be used as an ad on YouTube. You get your first 30 seconds, you got to put your hook in there. But if they keep watching, they're going, hey, okay, this guy's smart. I know what he's talking about. But then you can also take that 2 minute clip, 3 minute clip, and upload that to the Twiva network, and then have that being played around in the community. So people say, okay, this guy, he repairs this or he does that. And it's more like passive advertising. So they might not have that problem now, but when they do, they're going to think of you first, right?
Right.
They may not be
And they see your
doing
face,
that Google
right?
search yet.
Which
Yeah.
makes a difference, because then they're like, oh yeah, Bob the plumber. Yeah. I know him because
Yeah,
they've
I've seen
seen
him
you, right?
somewhere. Yeah, I've seen him somewhere. I mean, you may even see Bob the plumber at the restaurant, right? He's going to most
Yeah.
likely advertise in the places that he likes, that he goes. And good luck seeing that lawyer, from Morgan and Morgan or something. You'll never see him at your little coffee shop. But you never know, you might meet somebody that is you see directly on TV. The chances of that happening today, like zero. The chances of that happening on Tweet, very high. It's local
Right.
people. And again, it's about the relationship, that local, one-on-one connection between you and that other person that is 5 or 10 minutes away,
Yeah. Which is,
So
I think for most people, they're ideal clients that are like right near them. And, I know from like myself, we were talking beforehand, I'm in a small town that's, I think we're maybe around 20,000 people, but I'm always surprised how many businesses there are that nobody has any idea. Like they do business
Yep.
everywhere else and they're like, "Oh, I never get business from here." But then they leave and then everybody's like, "Come back, talk to us, teach us." And they were like, "I was literally there for 2 decades and
Yep.
nobody knew I existed." Right?
That's
So I
exactly
think
the fix. Yeah.
this is a good way to sort of fix that so that you can, not only, I think this not only helps you as a business owner, you as somebody who's wanting to advertise, but also helps your community to be more, sort of robust as well.
Yeah. You're gonna have potential influencers slash business people, like a young person might say, I just got my license. I'm gonna put out so much content out there that everybody is gonna be sick of me. Or they're gonna know everything about everything and I'll be so busy. And that is going to be what we would call a community expert. Like
Right.
we could create community experts. This guy for lawn care, he knows how to do that fertilizer. He knows how to keep the weeds away, but I'm not doing it. Like he taught me how, but I'm not doing it. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to just call him. And that would happen to probably, I've even tried a majority of the things in my house, but you get to the age and you're like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore, right?
I do it because I
That guy.
constantly see the lawn, like where they go and like there's like an abandoned lawn or something and they do like charity work and they clean it. And
Yes,
they're like
yes.
edging it and blowing it. And I'm like, oh, that looks so good. I've
Yep.
never edged a lawn in my life. And I still to this day have no idea how they get one strip to be one color and another strip to be another color. I think it looks really neat, but I'm like you, I'm like, I'll just pay somebody to do it.
Yeah, just somebody else can do it really good.
Because at the
They
end of the
know at
day,
what
it's
length.
just grass to me.
Yeah, yeah. Years and years ago, I fertilized my lawn, and then I got done 2 days later. They're like, "Dad, great football field," because I had put too much one way and too less the other way, and I had created stripes of 100 feet the whole yard. So you hear these stories. It's like for just a little bit more than the price of fertilizer bag, somebody would have come and done it the right way. But who do you call? I was
Yeah.
at Lowe's that day. Who do you call?
Yeah.
So these kind of things come into my mind. I'm like, okay, how do we help them do that? And that lawn guy is probably not going to put $3,000 on a TV ad to cover 4 major cities. It's just not going to do it. Would he put $5 on a TV from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Friday night at Chili's? Yeah, he might do that. That's more of a
No
good
brainer kind
advertising.
of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great ROI for him. He can build some relationships, and he can turn most of those into some commercials, if not the go-to guy. You know, when I burn my lawn and my neighbor's like, dude, just call that so-and-so guy. I see him all the time. And so again, that's that community expert, very local, very city-based. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea of the whole thing.
Yeah. So
You know?
talk to us a little bit, like, where is Twiva now? Where is your vision for it to go to? And then how do people find out about you, or even find out to get you to be like, hey, we need this in where we are?
Yes. So, well, Twiva right now is still starting up in Central Florida. And after we went to a couple of venture capital firms for a pretty large raise, they had a couple, opinions in there. It's very complicated. A physical box is not scalable as much as other, software businesses. So we worked on a software app that you can download to a smart TV. So if you have like a Google Chromecast now, and Apple TV is coming soon, you can literally join the network just with your TV.
Oh,
So that
that's
makes
cool.
it much more easier. Yeah. So it's like a sales rep could essentially walk into a business and say, hey, I see it's a smart TV. Why don't you download the app? We'll get you started into the network right away. So we're building out a local, start here in Central Florida, but eventually it's built out to be a nationwide or worldwide network where anybody in a small town could turn on their TV, join the network, and start adding content. And once one restaurant or business is in, they can just go to the next restaurant and add them too. And all of a sudden now they're sharing, but they're non-competitive. So you can't share food to food. You can't share doctor or office to doctor office. But the large vision is become that small town name for local things. So when me and the family go to the beach, we might pick up some ice cream, and there's a Twiva TV running with the local events happening. Is somebody shooting off fireworks at night 3 miles from here? What are the local events? Where is the live music happening? Because there's not an easy way to do that unless you join the Facebook group, right, for that town. Now an administrator allowed me in. Okay, now I have to search through 17 ads to find out what's going on.
Right.
So ultimately, we want to become that local TV channel for each town.
So then ultimately, would people be able to like figure out where it is that they're like, so like if somebody's traveling or going on vacation, would they be able to like log in and then know what's going on?
Yes, eventually with the mobile app, they probably could figure that out. I didn't think about putting the events in the app yet because we want it to be local based. There's a reason to go to those small businesses to find out what's,
Right.
or walking around. But yeah, the idea would be if a consumer carries around the phone, even the ads would change on the TV based upon who's walking in.
Right.
So if I walk into the business, it starts to show nerdy computer stuff and maybe what I'm interested in. If my wife walks in, it's going to show running shoes and other things of what she's interested in.
Right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So how can people learn more about this? Where can they connect with with you, with learning more about what it is that you have to offer? How do they get involved? Because I'm sure there's some people going, ooh, like even in my head, I'm like, this would work, because I'm in a small town and this is something, we had a local TV station. We lost it recently because they lost funding and all of that other stuff. Right. And it's a struggle. There's constantly stuff I see that, people are like, they see a photo and they're like, I didn't even know this was happening. When did this happen?
Yep. Yep, that's exactly right. Well, I mean, you can just go to twiva.com or hit us up on any of the social media platforms, create an account, download the TV app, and you can start with any restaurant or business. But essentially, you'd want to build out a few, you need kind of like a key person in a city to build out the first few screens and start publishing the content. So it's really an easy way to do it. But you need almost like a local sales person, like I call it a sales rep.
Right.
Like somebody in the town that's helping moderate a little bit of the content. But it is essentially what you're describing, a publishing platform for all the cities and towns. But if you do want to join, we'd love to have you. If you're a small business, you have a little bit of foot traffic coming in, we're going to offer a first box for anybody in their city, maybe a first 10 boxes or something like that, to get every city started. So definitely contact us. We'd love to bring you into the network. And if you're a content creator, an influencer, a podcaster, we want your content so we can start showing it on the network.
I love that. Well, we'll make sure we have all of the links to where, people can find you, connect with you, and keeping the word out there. And I think, this is important for people to, sort of take a different look on how they're advertising, not only for themselves, but for their community, because if we can grow others, that allows us to grow too.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And, just before we go, I'm going to sort of hit you with an off the cuff kind of question. But if, thinking back to your experience this far, is there something, one thing that you can think of, big or small, that you wish you would have known, a year ago, a day ago, like something that you were like, I wish somebody would have told me about that sooner?
Yes. So after our co-founder passed away, we went to a business accelerator. And that would have been a really great start to when you are looking at starting a business. Well, this was a startup. It was a startup business accelerator. So if you're doing a startup, that was a lot of really great information that you should have when you're starting, building the pitch deck, building the idea, the problem to solve. And because you're thinking about it as you build out the product and then you bring that to investors. So what I suggest is, if you're thinking about starting a business, or even if you're struggling at all, network, because that's what essentially that is the business accelerator, is find the Chamber of Commerce, find other business investors and chat with them, because there's no use in struggling by yourself. At least let other people know, because a lot of those ideas, a lot of the problems have solutions out there, and it's just a matter of you finding them. So networking would be number one, which I should have done.
But you're doing it now, and now you're creating this whole thing for people to do. So, but I love that. I think it's true. I think that it's, especially when people are starting out, you get hyper focused on this one thing that you're working on, and then try to do that after. Right.
Yes.
So doing it at the beginning is a little bit easier because you can get people excited with you, and then they're thrilled for it, not just going, oh, I didn't know that store opened, or I didn't know this business existed.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I can't, wait to watch how, this kind of unfolds, and we're definitely going to talk off air in just a second, because I got some more ideas.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on the show. It's a lot of fun to talk about it and educate on the new idea and teach people how to create content. It was a lot of fun.
I love it when interviews go half an hour over when we were supposed to. I was, chatting with Dave, and I was like, oh yeah, no, it's like half an hour. And we were on for an hour and a half because we just had so much to talk about. And I can't say anything yet because it's not released, but I did get a little bit of input on some stuff that he's working on that's going to be coming out. I'm guessing probably in the, by the end of this year. So we're definitely going to stay tuned to what's going on with this. But I loved having him on because I think this is a really great concept, and I want to see this come to, like I said, I live in rural Canada, and this is a struggle that I think a lot of small businesses in small towns do, because you can't afford the money to have these huge radio and these huge TV ads. But this is a way to sort of bridge that gap and allow your community to grow, to allow your business to grow, to give you an avenue to be able to get your story out, because it's always interesting and people want to know, and get really interested when they go, oh, I didn't realize that's why this person started this business. That's really interesting. Or I didn't know that this server had these type of interests. That's really cool. So I think that there's so much that is, that this application is going to be able to do and that it's going to grow into. So I really encourage you guys to head over to the links. They're going to be at the bottom of this episode, and see how you can get in now before it's super hard to get in on the ground, because this is something that I just envision is going to grow really, really big. So yeah. So thank you to Dave for coming on the show and sharing that, for spending time with me afterwards. I'm excited, this, as he said, Twiva is the world's first social TV network, and it's specifically for small businesses and influencers so that you can, showcase, and it's a digital, you can become a digital marketing guru, a startup enthusiast, a tech expert. Dave's got it all behind him with his team. So no matter what it is that you're doing today, whether you are stepping out of your comfort zone and taking some of his tips to talk a little bit more about who you are, what it is that you have to offer, or whether you are like, I don't want to do this, I'm going to let Twiva do it. Make sure that you take time to have fun, because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?